By two other members of the CLNS Media fam. We got Mike Kadlick, we got Brian Hines, and this is the Midseason Award Show. Obviously been quite the tough season for the 2-10 Patriots, or 2-8 Patriots, soon to be 2-10, I'm sure. But there have been some guys who've been busting their butts, putting together pretty good seasons. We want to give them their flowers and make sure they get their due. But before we get started, fellas, how we doing? First day that we don't have to go in. First day of the bye week. Anybody do anything fun so far?
I slept a little. It was nice. Didn't have to make the trek down to Foxborough today. That was good. Usually we're there early on Wednesday, Thursday anyway. No, nothing special. Just trying to figure out what the heck and where the heck this 2-8 team is and where they're going to keep going moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. But ready to dish out some awards, I guess, right?
I was going to say, it's kind of tough to dish out mid-season awards with a 2-8 team, but we'll do our best here.
Yeah. We will absolutely do our best. That's the key. We're trying to find some positivity in what's just been a cluster fudge of a year. But we'll start off with the Most Improved Player Award. Brian, we'll start off with you. If you want to give your picks, we'll put it up on the screen. Who do you have as a player on the Pats who has shown the most growth?
So I went Jelani Tavai here. And I know, Taylor, we were talking yesterday, like, he's someone who was decent last year even, right? Mm-hmm. Like he had a good year, but I think he's really taken a step up this year in terms of, being a 3-down player, even, more comfortable in coverage, it looks like, dropping back in zone. So, and he's been directly involved, it seems, every week now with a turnover for a defense that was struggling to, capitalize and create some turnovers. He's been leading that charge. And I think, PFF grades are what they are, but he's their top-ranked defender. I think they have him as a top 5 or 6 linebacker. So I've been really impressed with Jelani Tavai taking another step forward. And he's a guy who he's under contract next year for like $2-3 million. So it's looks like a good extension and a good player to have sticking around here for next year.
And Mike, you seem to agree because you as well have Jelani Tavai as the most improved player. What are your thoughts on what the third-year Patriot now? How long has he been with the team?
I think three,
I think 3 years now.
But
so,
what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was admittedly very low on Jelani Tavai last offseason. He wasn't great in preseason, and I thought that I just didn't even think he was going to make the roster last year. And then he did it, and he played pretty well, like you said, Brian. But he has really taken a step up this year. You talk about the forcing the turnovers. He's always in the mix. I feel like a year and a half ago when I was down on him, I thought that he was like very slow and really stagnant. He kind of reminded me of Brandon Spikes, where it's like he's great in like the box but he can't get anywhere outside. He can't do anything much outside of the run game, but he has it. He's done everything honestly really well this year. I'm eating my words about what I said about him season ago, because he's impressed me. I think he's been awesome, and he's really good off the field too. Not that really matters necessarily for like these awards, but the way he talks good about his teammates. He's really like a stand-up guy as far as that goes. Seems like a leader in the locker room that on a team that desperately needs it. So all around on the field, off the field, I think Jelani has very much improved from where he was at the start of his Patriots career.
I think that's fair. And he even said that, like we talked to him a few weeks ago, and I was like, do you feel like this is where you were when you got to the Patriots, or do you feel like you're a different player? And he acknowledged that, being in this system has really helped, and it gives you a lot of opportunities, but I'm also a guy who takes advantage of those opportunities. And I feel like he's definitely faster than he was early on in his career, whether that's just diagnosing plays and being able to get to his spots faster and be around the ball better. He's definitely an improved guy. So he is the winner. The way it works here is if you get 2 votes, you are the winner. But we got to have some honorable mentions too. Keep things a little spicy. So for my pick, I went a little bit different. I went with Ramondre Stevenson. And the thought process here was obviously he's been the offense pretty much for the past 2 seasons. But last year, obviously, they ran him into the ground. So throughout the year, you saw his production dip. Like, he's still catching passes. He's still getting carries. But there wasn't a whole lot of efficiency, and you weren't seeing the same kind of Mondre. And that was the same thing in the beginning of this season. We spent the first, over half of the year being like, what's up with him? Is he injured? Is it the offensive line, or what's going on? But since they've had that better grouping where they got City So at right guard, except for, they rotated against the Dolphins, that might have just been to keep everybody fresh. I moved Mike Onwenu to right tackle. they've been getting some more yards before contact. That's allowed both Mondre and Zeke to actually play to their styles. You're seeing Mondre break tackles, show the balance, and being able to make guys miss. And now the Patriots offense, even though they don't have Kendrick Bourne, is actually something that you can still watch and is kind of entertaining because you got Zeke, like it says down there, leads all non-QBs with 4 yards after contact per rush. A lot of that is the big run that he had against the Commanders, but he's also been doing that on a pretty weekly basis since week 7. So officially the awards, we've got Jelani Tavai as the winner, and then Ramondre Stevenson showing him a little bit of love as well. Next award.
Congrats, Jelani.
Shout out Matt Patricia for bringing Jelani Tavai in our lives.
Yeah.
Best thing he's done for this team in quite a few years. But now we got comeback player of the year. A lot of guys. This is a pretty diverse list. I'm going to have Mike go first because his pick, I'm very interested to hear the explanation for this one.
The explanation. Well, we'll say who it is first. It's none other than Ty Montgomery.
Okay.
So here's the justification behind it. Ty Montgomery hasn't done much this year. He hasn't been great. He's seldom used in the offensive game, passing and running, but he's been their lead kick returner. He has 7 kickoff return attempts for 173 yards. I'm reading off his stats. He has 2 carries for 7 yards, and in the passing game, he has 4 receptions for 23 yards. But hear me out. He didn't play last year due to injury. He played the first game. We expected a lot out of him. Obviously, he didn't play. He's sort of been the guy that everyone thinks, oh, well, you bring him in and he's not going to play and he's just going to be around here and then he's going to end up on IR and he's going to be this and that. But he's been out there and he's played, and I can't think of anybody else who really came back from injury or came back from anything major over the last couple of seasons. So this is the first name that came to mind when I was thinking through it. So I'm actually kind of curious to see what you guys have to say, to see how you guys justified your comeback players of the year. But my vote goes to Ty Montgomery.
Ty Montgomery had 4 catches this year.
Yeah.
I think he's had there was one against the Eagles, and I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember any of the other ones.
Yeah.
I would have said 1 max. I don't even. I feel like he's just been special teams only, which I've been pretty vocal that he should be their receiving back. But 4.
He had 2 catches in week 1 against Philly. He had 1 for 4 yards, or 1 for 5 yards against the Saints, and then 1 for 9 yards against the Raiders.
Okay.
I can't even in my head. That doesn't ring any bells.
Yeah.
And in your defense, he does have the second highest special teams grade on the team behind Brennan Spears.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's done nothing. The guy, he's doing his best, even though his role is mysteriously small on offense. Brian.
Better than what he did last year.
To be fair, he did have a touchdown last year.
All right, fine. You got me there.
And he's probably the best player on the team in the summer. But Brian, you went with Mike Onwenu. Big Mike. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, so
all right, fine, you got me.
I mean, I'll agree with Mike. This one was a little difficult because they don't have anyone who was, I guess the rules of comeback player of the year or the guidelines, right? Like it's Ty Montgomery or Cody Davis, and their special teams has been god awful. So sorry, Cody Davis. So I went Big Mike here because he, off-season ankle surgery. He missed all training camp. He was in and out of the lineup to start the year, and he's come back. They finally moved him to right tackle, and he's been awesome at that spot. I think it's 4 pressures in his 4 starts there, right tackle, and I still think he's a guard, but he's best at guard, but should be this team's tackle. They should extend him and play him as tackle. They like those big bodies at that right tackle spot specifically anyway. So I think he's been very good. He gets beat once a game, but it's once a game. What are you going to do? So excellent in the run game with City So, especially last week. I know you can see the PFF run blocking grade there at the bottom of the screen. So I think Big Mike's been awesome after, not having all the summer or the sprain and kind of working his way back into things as of late.
So it's like the comeback to the position where your team needed you award, which I think is still pretty fair.
And
that should be an award.
I was also debating going Matthew Slater here just because he came back to the mess. And
damn, that actually would have been good.
Shout out Matthew Slater.
Yeah. Damn. All right. We may have to throw him in here for an honorable mention, but I went a different one. So we're going to have a 3-way winner here. But I said Pharaoh Brown. Now, technically, comeback player could also be like a Geno Smith, where they weren't injured, but it was just someone that like you hadn't really heard of for a while, and then oh my gosh, they're good. Pharaoh Brown. I still don't exactly understand this, but hey, I'm not the one who's behind these grades. He is first in the NFL in receiving grade. If there's no snap or like target qualifier, he's number one, and he's 8th in complete offensive grade for the entire season. Obviously, like he's not exactly a huge difference maker for the team. You know, he's not the guy where you're looking every time they have a big run. Pharaoh Brown's at the point of attack. But you got to give the guy credit. Anytime they throw the ball his way, he's doing something with these breaking tackles. He's ripping off a big gain. And as a blocker, he does have 2 to 3 moments a game where, like early in the year, I described his blocking style as like he's trying to pick a fight. Where like he grabs on and he's like either trying to get a pancake or he's like kind of pushing you, jostling to see like, what, are you going to do something? Because he's big as hell. Like in the locker room, the guy really stands out. But yeah, you know, this, like we all said, this wasn't really an easy one to pick because there weren't any guys who were hurt and just like, you know, necessarily broke out or anything. So I went with Pharaoh. So 3-way tie for comeback player of the year. We got
Amit needs a vote, and he can break the tie.
Yeah.
If only. Bullying is not okay, but we will convince him to join us at some point when we're doing this show. Yeah. Before we start getting into the rookies who have impressed us the most this year, I'm going to throw it over to our friends at who's going first. Let's go with LinkedIn. We'll be back.
Let me tell you that this show is brought to you by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager. For your small business, you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. You can't trade in business. You got to just go out and sign free agents and find people, and LinkedIn Jobs will help you do that. They'll make it easy as well. Add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. Adding the right team member can make a big difference. You can have that kind of addition as well. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/beat. That's linkedin.com/beat, BEAT, to post your jobs for free. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, back from break. We're going to start off with the Offensive Rookie of the Year. This one's going to you first, Mike. This one isn't going to be a huge surprise. I feel like this is going to be the people's pick, but I want to hear your take. You went with Demario Pop Douglas. Why'd you go and do that? All he is the best receiver on the team, but
And I was going to say that there's not many other offensive rookies that have really played. I guess you could give it to City So, who's been, solid in his relief duties at guard. So that would be another, that probably would have been second for me. But no, I think, Demario's been Douglas. Demario has been dominant. I almost just said Demario has been Douglas. He has also been Douglas if you want to go there. But no, he's their second leading receiver behind only Kendrick Bourne. He obviously has a lot of work to do. His route running isn't very polished. Sometimes he doesn't, get as much separation. He doesn't finish his routes, and his timing with Mac has been off every once in a while. But I mean, for a 6th-round pick out of Liberty to come in here and be their second leading receiver and to already have a bit of a chemistry with Mac, and again, I just think he's the one thing on your offense that you haven't had in some time. It's like a true jitterbug scat type of wide receiver in the slot, and they so desperately need that. And so he's the one guy I think on offense that you can really try and build around. And again, I keep going back to the fact that he's a 6th-round pick out of Liberty. Like that's telling that that's what this offense has to build around. But at the same time, he's a damn good football player. At the bottom of the screen, you can see leading all receivers with 12.5 yards per 12 yards per reception. So I think it's Demario. I think that's running away. I assume you guys have the same. Maybe one of you guys did City, but we'll see. But no, I think Demario owns it.
No, actually, Brian. So it's going to be out there picking general.
Yeah, Right.
But yeah,
Okay.
if you know Brian, you
forgot.
probably know where this one's going to go. Brian, you
Here we
went
go.
with Bryce Behringer. And you're going to, just a little spoiler, it's not the first time you're going to see his name on this list. But in terms of Offensive Rookie of the Year, why did you go with Big Bad Bryce?
Well, I figured Pop would be the consensus here, right? So I wanted to spice it up a little. And as Mike got into, there's no other offensive rookies that are really contributing. You know, City's been solid the last few weeks, but
City's been so.
yeah, City's been so, and DeMario has been Douglas. But Bryce has been Behringer, and he is like he's bailing this offense out a lot, right? They put him in these plus 50 situations, and you know he's doing a really good job of pinning the other offenses deep, and you know he leads or tied first in the NFL with 24 punts inside the 20, which that was a concern of his coming out of college. We knew he had the big leg. We knew he could, hit the high hang times, but can he kind of dial it back and pin other offenses deep? And he's been able to do that. And I know people might say, oh, well, he's kicked 50 times. He should have a lot in the 20s, but even if you go to percentage, I think he's like 5 or 6 top percent inside the 20s there too. So, that's what I'll say about Bryce for now. I might have a little bit more on him later, but I'll go Bryce there for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
And if we're talking about consistency, I mean, very honestly, he probably is the Offensive Rookie of the Year. So that's truly a pretty fair pick. I went with the vanilla answer. I went with DeMario Douglas as well.
Yeah.
Obvious reasons. He gives you the stuff that you expected from an undersized, jitterbug type, where he's really good after the catch when you give him manufactured touches. But he's also been their best downfield receiver outside of Kendrick Bourne. He's the only guy other than Kendrick Bourne with multiple deep catches. And I think he's tied with Kendrick Bourne in yards on downfield receptions. So there's that. But, for fun, let's give City So some love as well. Yeah. I think in the 3 games where he and Mike and Winnie were playing together on the right side, he didn't give up any sacks. I think he gave up 1 hit and like 3 hurries or something like that. It was like 4 total pressures in 3 games, which is pretty insane. Really good in pass protection, was struggling in run blocking. And then last week, it was weird because it flipped. Where, you have Adrian Clem out, so you're going to have some differences in how the offense is going to perform. But he had his best game as a run blocker. Like, he and Mike Nwenu were just putting guys into a different stadium across the street. But his pass protection was a little wonky. So he still shows the flashes where you're saying, okay, if they re-sign Mike Nwenu and it's him and City, I'd like to see how they can develop and continue to work together. But, yeah, City's been good, but he doesn't get a spot on this list. Right now, it's DeMario Douglas as the winner for Offensive Rookie of the Year with Bryce Behringer as the runner-up. All right, now we're moving on to Defensive Rookies of the Year. And since we have a pretty good idea where Brian's going to go this, you're going to go up first, buddy. So once again, baby, we got Big Bad Bryce Behringer. What else you got? What other stats can you throw at us?
Well, he helps the defense too, right? Because he's hitting these offenses back and making them drive the full field, right? He's letting the defenses just, they're down inside the 20 all the time, making life easier for them. And I just think their special teams has been a mess. I talked about it earlier, but he's kind of the lone bright spot in that unit. And I know the stats might not always show it, right? Like some of the averages and the hang times, they're in the lower thirds of the league, but I think a lot of those are skewed. He had, I talked about all those plus 50 punts, right? Like those are going to be obviously shorter punts, lower hang times. And he had, like, in his first 2 or 3 games, I think he had 1 or 2 shanks, right? Which, I mean, it's going to happen as a rookie. Some were off some bad snaps too, I will mention. So, but he's rebounded very well. He hasn't had any shanks in a while. He's been one of the best punters in the league over the last 4 weeks. So, I mean, this was another one. Like Christian Gonzalez was awesome, but it's tough. 3.5 games. Keelan White's been, kind of up and down. Marte Mapu can't even get on the field at linebacker. So I went Bryce. He's helping the offense. He's helping the defense. So those are my picks there.
It's fair. Sad. We're not going to hear any more about Bryce the rest of the show. Another spoiler alert. But that was fun. We enjoyed that. All right, Mike, your pick. Another one probably going to be the consensus here. Oh, you want to lead in? You want to build up the tension?
I was just gonna say I was waiting for us to wait a little while and have Bryce be Brian's MVP too. That wouldn't have shocked me either.
I could change on the fly.
Yeah.
We'll sneak off into a commercial break and we'll talk about it. But Mike, you went with Christian Gonzalez. I feel like this one is pretty. It's right there. Defensive Rookie of the Month in the 1 month he played. Why'd you pick him?
For the reasons Brian kind of said, that the defensive rookies, haven't really done much or haven't really been great. I mean, Keon hasn't been solid. He's been up and down. Mapu barely played. And I think Gonzalez did enough in just 3.5 games to earn this honor. We should have done a special teams Rookie of the Year, and Bryce would have been mine as well, and he would have gotten an award from me. But I got to go with Gonzalez. 16 tackles, an interception, 3 passes deflected. Defensive Rookie of the Month in September. I just think you already have a de facto cornerback 1 on your roster. If he played more this season, he probably would have ended up as my MVP if he kept on that same trajectory. Would have been the Defensive Rookie of the Year, would have challenged for a Pro Bowl and maybe even All-Pro. He was that good, and it's too bad that we haven't been able to see him since. But I just think that there's not much else that you could give the award to, and I think Gonzo did enough in those 3.5 games to earn it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree. I also went with Gonzo. We're all on the same page here. So Keon White, he's doing the best he can. He has those disruptive moments where you're like, oh, he's like Wreck-It Ralph on a football field. But there's also the times where his technique, which was everybody knew it was raw coming in the league, you can kind of see it because he'll get in position to make plays, but he doesn't really finish. He's got like 4 missed tackles or something like that. Has a ton of pressures, but he doesn't really have hits or sacks. I don't think he has any hits or sacks, actually. But again, the pressures have been there, so he just has to finish those plays. Marte Mapu has had a bigger role than Adrian Phillips, which I don't think anybody expected going into the season. But for some reason, he's getting all the early down snaps that you would expect to go to Adrian Phillips, and then the late down stuff. It's really just Jalen Mills or Mac Wilson in the roles that everybody expected Marte Mapu was going to be used in. It's really weird. I would make the argument that, if you're trying to get this guy playing time, you should maybe use him in something where he can have defined roles, where it's like read the quarterback or cover a tight end in man coverage. But for whatever reason, seems like they're putting a lot on his plate in those big nickel packages, and he has not really made a positive impact, but he has blown a few coverages, so can't go to him. And Christian Gonzalez, you can argue he only played a month. That's not long enough, but they were giving him the toughest assignments, and he was doing a pretty bang-up job. Even the game with Tyreek Hill where Marcus Jones gets hurt, so he has to flip assignments. He got press coverage with safety help. He didn't need the safety help, but Tyreek Hill couldn't separate from him going downfield, doing anything, had the interception in deep zones. So, Christian Gonzalez, I feel like, was a pretty easy pick, even though he didn't play. Like you said, Mike, he gives you a de facto cornerback 1 for the foreseeable future. He's the guy. So, Christian Gonzalez.
Christian Gonzalez, more sacks than Keon White this year.
There you go.
That's pretty insane. I always forget that he also has a sack, which is just unbelievable. All right. So before we get into Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and our MVP, quickly, we're going to send it over to our friends at Factor. We'll be right back.
Fall season already in swing, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. Too busy this fall to cook? Want to make sure you're eating well? With Factor, skip the extra trip to the grocery store and the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up too, while still getting the flavor and nutritional quality you need. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is heat and enjoy, then get back to crushing your goals. Looking for calorie-conscious options during the busy season? Try the delicious dietitian-approved Calorie Smart meals with around less than 550 calories per serving. This September, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door. Ready in just 2 minutes. No prep, no mess. Head to factormeals.com/PressPass50 and use code PressPass50 to get 50% off. That's code PressPass50 at factormeals.com/PressPass50 to get 50% off.
So similar to defensive rookie of the year, it's a pretty shallow pool for offensive player of the year. It's been one of the league's worst units. Not a whole lot of bright spots, and the bright spots haven't really been consistent throughout the season for one reason or another. But you got to pick someone, and there have been some guys who have really been putting their all into trying to do something for this Patriots offense. So, Mike, you're up first. You went with Kendrick Bourne. I think that's a very understandable choice. Give us your thoughts.
Leading wide receiver in a room that frankly stinks and stunks.
Boy,
sorry,
okay.
gotta I mean, come on. I mean, yeah, they throw it. They threw it in our face. I guess it's the way we've done it this year. I think we can throw it back. But Kendrick's been good, and he's the one who threw it in Mike's face that time, and he was right because he was the one that was actually pretty good. 35 catches, 406 yards, 4 touchdowns. That the advanced stats will tell you the same thing. I think he was ranked a top 10 or top 11 wide receiver with those ESPN analytics a few weeks ago. And I just think that he's really the one thing on offense that, felt consistent or as consistent as they've had this season. He had his ebbs and flows as well. But at the end of the day, Mac was able to go to him. Mac said he was his go-to guy. I think that, I kind of like to link off the field in here as well. He could be considered comeback player of the year, I think. Kendrick Bourne from last year to this season. I don't know why I didn't do that.
That's a really good point.
No offense to Ty Montgomery or anything, but Kendrick Bourne's been great. It was great this year. It's too bad that they lose him to ACL. He had surgery yesterday. Sounds successful. So hopefully they can figure out a way to re-sign him and get him back because I think he's awesome for this team. And I think at the end of the day, he's been their best offensive player to date. So I gave it to KB.
Hopefully they extend him. Brian, you went with another guy in the wide receiver room. Shallow pool, but you had 2 guys who've been busting their butts when they're on the field. Again, try to do something for the Rager, of course. No, you went with Pop Douglas.
TJ Luther. So, yeah, I went Pop. I did put heavy consideration into David Andrews here because he's played some pretty good ball with a big mess around him. So I'll give him some flowers too. But yeah, I went Pop because I didn't pick him for offensive rookie of the year. And I know you guys, talked in depth about him in that section, but he's been, since KB went down, he's been their most consistent threat in this offense. And you could probably argue he should have played more even when KB was healthy earlier in the year. He was one of their real only consistent threats, and he fumbled and they put him on the bench, unfortunately. But I mean, he's the only guy who can get open. He's the only guy in this room who can create something after the catch. So Pop's been awesome this year. There are still some route tendencies, issues you'd like to clean up, but he's a 6th-round rookie, as we've said. So for what he's brought as the 210th overall pick, I believe it was, to this offense, it's deserving of Offensive Player of the Year for me. And I think he's really the only one in that receiver room that you can look ahead to next year and be like, that guy's part of the equation to fixing this. So it's been a good start from Pop.
2 good picks. And funny you mentioned David Andrews. We were on the same page.
I
went with David Andrews. Now, obviously it hasn't been his best season. He's going to give – it's kind of similar I forget who it was. I just blanked. Whatever. David Andrews, he'll give up a couple pressures a game. They don't look great, and it's easy to kind of pick on those. But he has been the only consistent thing about this entire Patriots offense. Played 100% of the snaps. Been one of the best run blockers in the NFL. The past 4 weeks, I think he's really, really been up there. As they've found some actual consistency along the offensive line. It helps when you're a center and you're playing next to the same guys for a couple weeks in a row. But yeah, I mean, I had to give David Andrews some love because, again, being the only consistent piece, playing every single snap, and also talk about off the field, it's not even Bill who's the first person to speak to the media after games. It's David, and he has to deal with a lot of irritating questions about, things that he constantly tells us, I'm a player. I don't have control over whether or not Max starts and, our schedule and da-da-da-da. So, yeah, I think he really does deserve a lot of credit for everything that he's done this season, especially at his age and just being a standout at the center position, which isn't easy. So, Offensive Players of the Year, we got a 3-way tie. David Andrews, DeMario Douglas, and Kendrick Bourne. Probably the only players, unless you're going to count Bryce Behringer as an offensive player, who deserve any kind of consideration in this role. Good for them. Next up, we've got Defensive Players of the Year. I'm going to go with you first, Brian. Who do you got? Because I feel like we're all kind of in the same boat which defensive players have been killing it. So who you got first?
Yeah, I feel like this was easy. Like, there's three guys who probably stand out, but I went Jabril Peppers. Looks definitely healthier this year, right? He's coming back from that ACL last year, and he's such a fit in this defense. He's been awesome. Wherever they play him at safety and down in the box. So against the run, we talked like Tavai has been a catalyst for a lot of those turnovers. Peppers has had his hand in a lot of those as well, either like doing it himself, like the Jalen Hurts fumble week 1, or teaming up with Tavai to force some fumbles like that big hit in Vegas. So Peppers has been awesome on the field. Another guy you can extend this to off the field in the locker room, seems like really taking on a leadership role. I know that locker room video against Buffalo where he stepped in before Matt Slater and said something to the team, like how many guys can do that. So another guy who's also under contract next year and probably part of this solution going forward. So Peppers has been very good this year, and he's my defensive player of the year.
Future captain Jabril Peppers, I'm calling it now.
Yeah.
He's carrying some serious weight in that locker room. Mike, you with another guy who's been making a lot of plays for this defense, especially of late, Christian Barmore. What are your thoughts on the big guy?
Yep, he's been awesome. Another guy, thinking about it again, could be considered comeback player of the year after his injury last season. He missed a lot of time. Still kicking myself for nominating Ty Montgomery. Now that we go through the rest of the roster,
Amit will fix that in post.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get Amit on it right now from the Garden. But no, former Alabama defensive tackle Barmore. He's been awesome. 3 sacks, 5 TFLs, 6 QB hits. All of those are career highs through only 10 games. The advanced stats, all the PFF numbies that you can find will tell you the same. He's been awesome. Tied 9th among interior defensive linemen with 10 hurries since week 6. I'm reading directly off of the lower third there, but he's been awesome. I mean, he's been awesome in the run game, mucking that up there. I just think that this is another one of those guys that he is a pillar to build around. There aren't many. I know the only one I feel like is a complete lock is Christian Gonzalez, but Barmore's making a significant case for it. I think this is a guy you got to lock up long term here eventually. He's awesome, and I think he is so far this season been the defensive player of the year.
I went back and forth, man. It was really tough trying to figure out because these are the two guys on either side of the ball who probably made the biggest impact for the team overall. I had to go with Jabril Peppers, mostly because this is somebody who, like, I think you kind of hit it on the head, Brian. He's been involved in so many turnovers and plays that have really changed the game. Like, think about the Eagles game where he forces the fumble on Jalen Hurts. The Raiders game forces it's a lot of big hits from Jabril Peppers that lead to a lot of big plays. He's also contributed on special teams and then the off-field stuff. Honestly, Brian, you nailed it. I'm not going to, beat a dead horse here. Jabril Peppers has been fantastic. Awesome to see what he's been able to do 2 years off the ACL injury, really playing with confidence and really finding himself. And the Patriots scheme has really been, for the most part, putting him in a position to succeed. I'd like to see less of him at free safety, but, you also have the play like against the Eagles where he races to the sideline, breaks up a pass. Against the Commanders, he bails Marte Mapu out after he doesn't play his deep half and gets a breakup. So, he's been good in those deep zones, but you'd like to see more of him near the box because that's where he thrives. So, for Defensive Player of the Year, the award goes to Jabril Peppers with a hearty shout-out for Christian Barmore as well. Now, I don't know if anybody can hear that. The moment we've all been waiting for, most valuable player on this Patriots team. It's going to be some familiar names on here, but once again, it's not a really deep pool of players who have been making weekly impacts that kind of jump out at you. But again, these guys deserve their flowers. They've been killing it. Going with you first, Brian. Like I said, familiar name, Christian Barmore. What's your take on him?
Yeah, so Mike hit it kind of like we know he would be able to rush the passer, right? We saw that his rookie year, and he's finally healthy, and you're seeing that again. But the big thing to me has been his run defense has taken such a step up. I think, his last 5 games have been so awesome in both areas. He's leading all, PFF has him leading all interior defenders. That's right there on the lower third with 15 total stops the last 5 weeks. So he's been awesome as a pass rusher in the run game, which definitely was an adjustment. DeMarcus Covington even talked about it, learning to play within this defense, 2 gapping and then shooting gaps when you're allowed to do that. So Barmore's been awesome in all facets of the game. He's been probably their best player this season, most valuable player, and definitely a guy who you're talking contract extension with the moment the offseason starts. And like, you hope you can get Judon back or Uche steps up and they can start, cleaning these pressures up. Like, Barmore's racking up the pressures. Now let's get some edge rushers in there to clean up these sacks, and then you're really cooking. So Christian Barmore has been awesome all year for the Pats.
Absolutely. All right, Mike, you pivoted a little bit. This one for you was Jabril Peppers Award. Why do you think that?
Yeah. We flipped here a bit with the DPOY versus MVP, but the reason I did it is the mixture of what he does on the field with off the field. I think he adds tremendous value off the field with this team. You mentioned it, Brian, the video prior to Slater. I think he's one of the few players that, or one of the few guys that players in the locker room gravitate towards right now. No offense to David Andrews and Matthew Slater, not that they don't respect those guys, but I feel like leadership in their locker room is sort of getting older and it's kind of phasing out, and the Patriot way that we all talk about is sort of losing its shine. We know that because they're 2-8, but I think Jabril Peppers is one of those guys who can kind of rally the troops and be a pillar moving forward. Like you said, future captain potentially, Taylor. So at the end of the day, we know what he can do on the field. You guys hit it on the head with the good run defense. Maybe see him in the pass game as well. He's done well. Hopefully see him at some free safety if you want to get him there. But I think what he does off the field makes him clearly, in my opinion, the most valuable player on the team.
Another one where I went back and forth because these guys are both very deserving, but because I went with Jabril Peppers for Defensive Player of the Year, had to go with Barmore for my MVP. That's the wrong one. This is the right one. Yeah, for my MVP. I mean, he's really been getting more attention since week 6. I feel like, especially with Judon going down, the attention was, at the beginning of the season, it's this Patriots defensive line is so stacked. You're getting help from everywhere. And then Judon goes down and it's all right, who's going to step up? And that's when you really saw Barmore start earning more spotlight. But he had his best game of run defense, according to PFF, in week 1 against the Eagles. And he had his best pass rushing performance in week 3 against the Jets. So he was still doing well early on in the season, like very, very well. It's just that he's been more consistent. And now we're seeing week in and week out just dominating. And then my thing was the big difference maker was you make more of an impact when you're a good defensive tackle. Like, edge rushers are the ones who get paid all the money. But if you have a great interior defensive lineman, it affects where the offense can go. And if you can't control the middle of the field as an offense, that's really, really tough. And especially considering the fact that Barmore gets a lot of the extra attention on this team and still manages to make such an impact. He's been like splitting double teams, standing up to double teams and making a mess, making quick impacts in the pass game. I just think he's been fantastic. So I went with Barmore. He is our winner for MVP, with Jabril Peppers as a close second. Both those guys have been balling out for New England, and they deserve a lot of credit. That's going to do it for us, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Guys, let people know where they can find you and your fantastic work, anything you got coming out. Brian, I'll go with you first because you got the B. So,
follow me on Twitter for the wonderful Bryce Behringer clips at I am Brian Hines. Obviously, me and Barth right here, Pat's Beat, and then all the wonderful words over at patspulpit.com for any Patriots coverage throughout this bye week and going forward, and probably some draft stuff coming soon. So that's where you can find me.
I can't wait to go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Brian, I think you broke the news that Bryce Behringer has the longest punt in the NFL this season. So, big endorsement there. Follow the man.
Do you expect anyone else to do it?
Yeah, seriously.
All right, Mikey, you're up.
I can't wait for the draft coverage, Brian. You're right. So it's all coming down the pipe on Twitter at Mike Kadlick, WEEI.com for all the written Patriots coverage. And you can listen to myself, Jumbo Hart, and Nick Fitzy Stevens over on the Six Rings podcast.
And, of course, follow Patriots CLNS on Twitter. Subscribe to CLNS Media on YouTube. Thank you all so much for watching, taking time out of your busy days. We appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other.